Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Chad M here with BetHub.com, back with the most highly anticipated segment of the week. It is none other than my top 3 NFL selections. We have things going down playoff style. Last week during wildcard weekend, we got off to profitable 2-1 start. I went Tommy totals on you guys, and the one that was wrong was the over in the Baltimore-Indianapolis game, and that was the absolute biggest joke of all time. I know there were only 33 points scored, but oh my God, were there a ton left on the board. There was 850 yards of offense combined. Indianapolis only scored 9 points, no touchdowns, and over 400 yards moving the football. That has to be some sort of record. There was miscues in the red zone, missed field goals, almost pick sixes that were tackled and then they ran out the clock. I could go on and on forever. It's just absolutely absurd how every time I come out with a big play on an over, it seems like every bad bounce seems to go against us. But you know, we still ended up having a profiting week, and we got our record back up to 500. I was slightly under it in the regular season here, so we're looking to move forward here in the division round series, which will get underway on Saturday. And I absolutely love this week's board. The games themselves are much more intriguing, I think, than what we had seen last week. Hopefully there'll be some more competitive games and not quite as many blowouts. And like I'll do from last week, I'll give you guys a breakdown on every single game, even the ones that I don't necessarily have a wager on. Last week I was very heavy on the totals as I did not see as much value in the sides. This week it's a complete role reversal. I like some of the sides a lot more than so the totals. So we'll get straight down to business here with my gold #1 overall selection here for this NL or the division round series, whatever you guys want to call it, the week after the wild card, the week before the conference championships. And I absolutely love the Atlanta Falcons laying under a field goal here against the Seattle Seahawks. Listen, I understand how well Seattle's playing, and I'm not one to usually get in front of a team this hot. However, I think the circumstance and the situation sets up absolutely perfect for Atlanta and not so much for Seattle. First of all, we need to look at how good Atlanta has been on their home field here under Matt Ryan and Mike Smith. It's been nothing short of phenomenal. They're 24-13 ATS, and they're even greater with their overall mark, not against the spread. I'm not sure what the numbers are. And if truth be told, the ATS numbers have even come down a little bit this year, as they were under 500 this year, ATS, because everybody's starting to catch on to how good they are, and the numbers oftentimes get inflated, and they win these games, but they don't cover. Well, you know what? Anytime you're laying less than a field goal, if they win the game, they're most likely going to cover. So that's why I don't have an issue here with laying a couple of points. And furthermore, when you look at the fact that this team has had a bye and an extra week to prepare for them, I think it's going to do wonders for a team that's as efficient as Atlanta is offensively, going up against a defense like Seattle, which has been very good this year. We all know that they're ranked top 5 across the board in the league. But like I said, the spot is not very good here for Seattle. It was a very emotional and physically draining game in Washington. It was a late game on Sunday. They had to travel all the way back to Seattle, and then they have to come all the way back to the East Coast, back and forth to play an early start on Sunday morning. So Atlanta should be far more rested and ready to go from a mental sharpness standpoint, something that Seattle might not be able to live up to. We saw them come out a little bit flat against Washington last week, and if it wasn't for Griffin getting banged up in that game, who knows, maybe it would have been a different story. With Atlanta here, you know, Matt Ryan's fully healthy going in, and their offensive line will protect them all game long. And I think that the ability for them to be able to throw downfield, something that maybe Washington wasn't able to as much to stretch the defense a little bit, will make a difference in this game here. You know what Julio Jones and Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez, and the boys can do downfield. I know that Michael Turner hasn't been great this year, but I think they find a way to get him involved in this game here. Jacquizz Rodgers, I really think the play calling is going to be huge in this game here for Atlanta, and it's just such a cheap price for them to be laying at home. Like I had mentioned last week in terms of Seattle's offensive efficiency, it's just not as good on the road. I know they played better the last few weeks there, but still, this is a very home road dichotomy type of team where they really excel at home but not quite as good on the road, especially in the early time zones. I think going indoors on a track inside in the dome does not benefit them. They're a team that likes to ground and pound, eat the clock up with Marshawn Lynch, and keep the high-flying offenses off the field, which is not what they're going to be seeing here. I mean, which is what they're going to be seeing with Atlanta. We've seen them struggle defensively against better offensive teams throughout the course of this year, like you know, New England earlier in the year, Green Bay to some extent when they came to Seattle. So I do look for Atlanta to have a very good offensive game here, and I know a lot of people are going to say the biggest difference here is the fact that Seattle can move the football, but their defense is way better than Atlanta. And I know that Atlanta doesn't have a great defense from a statistical standpoint, but they do a damn good job of keeping points off the board. In all their home games this year, only once did they allow over 22 points. And they've been very good at keeping teams out of the end zone. They were banged up quite a bit in the secondary, but they're starting to get their guys back now with Dunta Robinson and Brent Grimes. We know Asante Samuel's an absolute ball hawk. They got him this offseason. So I think that they should be able to limit some of those big plays downfield that Seattle or that Washington surrendered in that poor secondary with a lot of missed tackles in last week's game. So I just absolutely love Atlanta here. I think they have a lot to prove. Everybody's doubting them. They haven't won a playoff game under this regime. I think this all changes here. It's a statement game for them. They've been undervalued the entire second half of the year because everyone doesn't like their metrics from a statistical standpoint. Well, I'm going to throw that all out the window here and believe that they're going to rise to the occasion here on their home field and win this football game because the spot is great. I don't necessarily think the number has a tremendous amount of value from an overall season standpoint. I just think it does from the spot here. I'm actually making it my biggest bet of the year. Take the Atlanta Falcons -1.5, -2, 2.5. You shouldn't have to lay a field goal in this football game. We'll move on to my silver selection now. Number 2 pick here, and I'm going to be going with the Houston Texans grabbing nearly 10 full points here against the New England Patriots. And I know that a lot of people are going to look at what happened about 4 or 5 weeks ago when they got absolutely steamrolled in New England. But this is a completely different game, and that was a spot that was horrendous for the Texans. They played their 4th road game in 5 games. They had the Thanksgiving thing. They had a couple of overtime games. New England was rested. It just didn't set up well for them. They're fresh now, and now because of that, they're getting an inflated number all the way up to 9.5, 10 points, when this number truly should be maybe 5.5, 6, 7 at the absolute most. And when you look at New England in the playoffs over the last number of years, they've been absolutely atrocious ATS to the sum of 1-8 in their last 9 football games. The last spread they covered ATS was against Tebow last year. Prior to that, it was 3 or 4 years ago. And when you look at Brady all time, he is 122-77 ATS, but yet only 9-13 in the playoffs, where he's had a 16-6 record. So what is that saying? With the 16-6 record, but having a way under 500 ATS record, that the odds makers know that New England is such a public team come the playoffs that they really jack up the numbers and inflate them, making it very difficult for them to cover. Because a lot of times their ATS success is against bad teams in the regular season where they do a very good job of blowing them out. But when the competition level is higher in the playoffs, the games are often a lot more competitive. So if they go ahead and win these games, oftentimes it's not by that big margin that many people think they will. And that's why I love the Houston Texans here in the spot. I think they have revenge on their mind. They're definitely going to play better football game. They cannot play as bad as they did last game. The game was actually somewhat close early on. Just a couple of bad bounces went against them with the interceptions, not converting the 4th downs. I think they learn a lot from that. I think Schaub is sharper in this game. And when you look at the way they played last week against Cincinnati, that was a very misleading score, that 19-13. They absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage, the time of possession, the conversions on 3rd downs. For whatever reason, they just weren't able to convert in the red zone. Well, Cincinnati had a better defense than New England does, and I think that they convert a lot more of those opportunities this week. They have the better overall defense, and while New England might have a slightly better offense, Houston still ranks top 8 in overall offense, and they can keep up with them here. They are definitely capable of getting a late backdoor touchdown if they need to. I think they're live to win this game straight up. This game reminds me a lot of the Baltimore game last year, where nobody wanted a piece of them because they did not look good in their previous win, barely getting by, and New England was coming in hot, wiping the teams out at the end of the regular season and pumping Denver. I think that they play a very tight game here, and I like Houston plus the points quite a bit. That is my 2nd overall pick here this week. And last but not least, my bronze, my final pick here. Very, very difficult to determine here, and I don't absolutely love the pick. I'm not going to go buck wild on it, but I will take the Green Bay Packers plus 3 points here against the San Francisco 49ers. For a couple of reasons. First of all, I do like having Rodgers over Colin Kaepernick late here. Rodgers has really been on fire recently. We know how well the Packers have played down the stretch. The only loss they had was at Minnesota after that terrible game against the Giants. I don't know when that was, back in about week 10 or something like that. So out of the 9 of their last 10 games, they haven't lost by more than 3. And that's what they're getting here in this spot. And this is the first time that Green Bay's had all their receivers fully healthy, which will help them sort of spread the field and keep the 49er defense from really pounding the inside line of scrimmage, which is what they do so well. And I think that if there's one weakness and a vulnerability on the 49er defense. It is that secondary, which is very high risk, high reward. They love to try to create the turnovers and go for the big hits. Well, good quarterbacks can expose them. We saw New Orleans do that in the playoffs last year. We saw Eli Manning and the Giants do that to them last year. So no reason not to think that the Packers can't do that here this week. DeJuan Harris is helping them with a bit of a running game to balance things out. Can help with some play action as well. And when you look at Green Bay on the defensive side of things, they're playing much, much better. They had that one little hiccup there against Minnesota in the final week of the regular season, but prior to that, they had not given up more than 20 points in 7 out of 8 games, and I expect that to continue here. They're getting healthy in the secondary with Woodson, their captain, back there, and they got Clay Matthews at the front making some havoc with this Moses kid, and I think that Kaepernick's a very risky quarterback at this point, wanting to really push it downfield, and I think that he could pay with some of the better secondary players and some of the plans that Dom Capers has in mind to keep them guessing all day long. And I really do believe when it comes down to being in the red zone, Green Bay has a massive advantage here. So I do like the points. And San Francisco is just a team that's not really built to win by large margins. So I can see Green Bay hanging around all game long. And this game coming down to field goal either way. So therefore, I would like the points with Green Bay. And they sort of remind me of getting hot at the end of the year, like they did the year they won the Super Bowl, instead of last year sort of coming in cold and peaking at the wrong time. So I do like the Packers here, and San Francisco is also missing Justin Smith. I don't know if he's going to be back healthy, to what extent. He's a big part of their pass rush, because when you have him and Aldon Smith coming from opposite sides, it really causes the guessing game for the quarterback with the pressure. Now with just one side, Rodgers can favor there. Plus, he has a bit of a scrambling ability to get out of some of that pressure, and I think that if they want to come in hard with the blitzes on him, he'll be able to get a lot of those dump-off passes working to perfection like we saw against Minnesota. And last week's game against Minnesota, that score could have been 58-10 if they really wanted to. But once they knew Joe Webb stunk, it was just run, punt in the second half there to just run out the clock. So that score could have been a lot higher, and I saw the Green Bay offense in absolute maximum efficiency, which I think can work against the San Francisco defense, which we've seen against some better offenses give up some points recently. We did against Seattle. That game against New England, I think Green Bay will learn from that and realize if they maybe move to a bit of an up-tempo offense and keep them on the field, they can tire them out come the second half as well. So that concludes the 3 picks that I like. Now with this Denver-Baltimore game, I do lean to the Broncos here laying the points just because Baltimore stinks on the road. Joe Flacco's not the same. They did not look all that impressive against Indianapolis. They got sort of lucky due to the fact that Indianapolis could not convert because the yardage was pretty similar. If anything, Indianapolis probably took the play to them from a possession standpoint, a converting third down standpoint. If it wasn't for a big couple of plays downfield, Flacco to Anquan Bolden, and that game would have been a lot tighter than it was. I don't like the play calling. They don't give it to Ray Rice enough. The Denver defense is far superior right now and rested. They're going to cause havoc, and I just don't see Denver or Baltimore being able to score in this game. Eventually, Manning and all of his boys are going to get it going. They have a well-balanced ground game, a better overall defense on their home field. Baltimore stinks on the road. They're still banged up. I'm not convinced they're at full health with that defense, and they should be able to get exposed, and I can see Denver winning this game by double digits, therefore leaning towards laying the points. I can also see it being a bit of a lower scoring game due to the fact that there will not be Baltimore, I don't think, can score more than 14 or 17 in this game. But at the same point in time, that Denver offense can go buck wild, so I do stay away from that total. But if I had to, I would lean to the under. I lean to the over in the Houston-New England game just because both teams can score and rack it up. And I also believe I do lean to the over in the Green Bay San Francisco game just because it seems like these Niner games against good teams always find ways to go over it. The turnovers, the short fields. I don't know. They just seem to get wacky. But I'm not all that confident with those totals this week, so I'll probably lay off of them. And that's pretty much the way it stands for this week, guys. Just a few more games left after this weekend. There ain't much football left. And enjoy it. It's the last weekend with 4 quality games on Saturday and Sunday. After that, it's conference championships and then Super Bowl. I know you guys want to wager on it. Who doesn't? It's playoff time. Check out the link below, bethub.com. Sign up for your account today. If you already have one, that's fantastic. You're on track. You know what it's all about. You go out there, you challenge your friends, you throw up some bets, you have some trash talking, you can see everybody's record. Great little innovative website that you guys need to get involved with right now and cash in on some of the bonuses that we actually have going on in the playoffs as well. Look forward to coming back for some more football breakdowns in the following week.